Modern neuroscience tells us that instead of writing down things we're thankful for in a journal, simply listening to and connecting with positive stories about people can better help shift our immune system into balance. It can help us move from a state of constant anxiety towards motivation. So 3 days a week, I'm sharing stories we can feel good about. Mondays, you'll hear a story from the past to be thankful for. On Wednesdays, I'll tell an inspiring story from the present. And Fridays, you'll head into the weekend with a story to keep you optimistic about our future. Hi, I'm Chris. Welcome to My Good 3. All right, happy Wednesday. Most of us have been there, sitting motionless on a tarmac at some random airport in a hot, stuffy airplane. There's a kid crying 2 rows up. The person behind you accidentally kicks your seat. You reposition the air vent to get a little cooler air on your face, but it just doesn't seem to work. You glance at the time and do the math, trying to anticipate when you'll finally reach your destination. Minute by minute, your plans deteriorate. And then you hear the captain on the loudspeaker. Everyone quiets down and sits up. But the captain's tone is off. Ugh, more bad news. This is a story about the right person being in the right place at the right time. It happened on a Delta Airlines flight, sitting on a tarmac, stuffed full of frustrated travelers during the holidays, seemingly bound for nowhere. And how one man completely turned the situation around, with nothing more than a few notes. Last week, at Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, the busiest airport in the world, there was the usual influx of holiday traffic. One Delta Airlines flight, filled to capacity, sat on the tarmac. Passengers grumbled when the announcement was made that there was a delay, but what they didn't know was that this was only the beginning of the wait. As the minutes slowly ticked by, kids began to scream. Passengers exchanged frustrated words with flight attendants, and the tension in the cabin air steadily elevated. Finally, after what seemed like hours, the captain announced that because of the delay, the crew would need to be swapped out due to crew rest regulations, and unfortunately, the incoming crew was stuck in Atlanta traffic. Immediately, you could hear people gasp. Kids screamed louder. Patience grew thinner. Passengers were forced to deal with at least another hour delay, all for just a 32-minute flight to Augusta, Georgia. If passengers would have just driven, they'd have been there by now. One of the passengers was Wayne Huey, who sat with his wife Josie, and they received the news about like everyone else. It was a frustrating end to a fun trip up to Detroit to see the Motown Museum. Wayne looked up at the handle on the case in the overhead bin above him, and he had an idea. Wayne was a musician, a saxophonist, and not just any saxophonist, he was the leader of the Wayne Huey Big Band from Augusta. He was also a retired middle school teacher and Army veteran who had played sax in the U.S. Army Band for 20 years, having traveled the world boosting troop morale during the Vietnam War. Wayne called for a flight attendant and whispered something in her ear. A few moments later, after talking with the captain, the flight attendant returned and whispered something back. Wayne stood up, took the case from the overhead bin, and assembled his saxophone. At just the right moment, when the air was thick with frustration and complaining, Wayne began to play. The entire plane fell silent, and jaws collectively dropped. He started with Christmas carols. Wayne walked up and down the aisle, showcasing his talent and entertaining the passengers. Then he went from carols to other songs, and for the kids on the plane, he even played Baby Shark. Completely distracted, the passengers didn't notice when the new crew arrived, and before they knew it, they were being asked to sit down in their seats and buckle up so they could taxi to the runway. Wayne concluded his set and received a round of applause, then sat back down next to Josie, and prepared for takeoff. There's something about talent that stops us all in our tracks. It's why we stop talking and gather around someone performing in the street. It's why shows like America's Got Talent are so popular. When it comes to music, a talented artist with just a few notes can change our mood and make us forget our worries in an instant. On this one delayed Delta Airlines flight in December, in the middle of the busiest airport in the world, full of passengers at the end of their ropes, struggling to find the holiday spirit, all it took was an old army musician standing up, lifting a saxophone, and making a difficult situation memorable with his gift of music. Thank you for listening. I realize this podcast won't be successful without your help. So if you'd like to rate it, or better yet, review it, wherever you get your podcasts, that would really help. And if you're on Instagram, go to @mygood3, THREE, to vote each episode up or down. I'm also excited to read more Good 3 stories from listeners. So just go to our website, mygood3.com, and submit a story of your own from the past, present, or future, or all three. And maybe I'll use it in an episode. Thanks again. Here's to hoping My Good 3 can set the stage for your good week.